Thanks for joining us this morning. As Steve said, this is just a bit of a high-level view of how to look at controlling risk in Microsoft Dynamics CRM and ERP presentations. Just moving forward through the agenda, I'm going to do a short introduction, which you've just had, and then what we're going to do is just give you a little bit of background on me, and then to quite clearly position excuse me, what this session is and what this session isn't, because that's quite important. So a little bit of background. I've actually been around the ERP space since 1982 and had a number of roles where I've been directly involved as a developer, business analyst, project manager, pre-sales consultant, and then moving into sales and management. So hopefully, I do know a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today, and I have had some real hands-on experience of some of the problems that come up and things that people encounter on a day-to-day basis. So one thing to position here, that everything we're going to talk about today is just basic common sense. You know, there's no rocket science in here, there's nothing special that anybody's discovered about projects over the last 20 odd years, but hopefully there will be some ideas and some good practice that you might be able to take forward, and I'm sure there'll be quite a few things that will relate and resonate with you as to problems you've seen. So again, moving on to my background, I have held some pretty senior roles, as you can see from the slide. And in all of these roles where I've been involved with ERP and CRM projects, I've always got dragged into project issues. And the real problem is that it's a huge drain on resources. It puts a strain on the relationship with the customer and on the company, both from the end user and us as a delivery organisation. And really this is, we just don't want unhappy customers at the end of the day. And at one point when I was in Microsoft, it actually became a major problem, and Microsoft set up a small core team internally called the Centre of Excellence, which was aimed to help. And in Microsoft's own case, an ERP project almost brought down one of the subsidiaries because it just went so wrong. So even Microsoft didn't get it right and had to think about what they were doing. But as I said, this is just some common sense, some hopefully good practice that you'll be able to take forward. Again, I am going to say things over and over. You will see things coming up in slightly different formats, but the message will be the same over and over. So what is it? So just a second while the screen builds. What is this? What is it? So it's a discussion based upon my experience over a long period of time. It's learnings, things that I've seen work well and what doesn't work well in both CRM and ERP projects. My views on over-engineered and complex project tools. You know, what we're not, and this says it below, is we're not going to do a review of tool sets for projects. There are tons of them already, and I've seen projects work really well, where it's just been an Excel spreadsheet through to where it's fallen apart with the most complex tools that anybody can put into place. But ultimately, it's just a number of simple things that can be used as a guide or a template to help minimise project risk. And the other thing it isn't, it's not a bid by us as an organisation to become a project delivery setup. You know, it's not what we're here to do. We're here to try and help you, both as customers and as delivery partners, provide the right skill sets to make sure that the projects are a success. So, you know, every project is different in its own right. One thing I've seen is an incorrect assumption also that a CRM, which is shallower but more flexible and is sometimes known as XRM in the marketplace, project is the same as an ERP project. But ERP tends to be much deeper, very specific areas which it's aiming to address. However, the similarity is the things that need to be put in place to ensure success are pretty consistent. Again, just something to note here, Microsoft maybe have just made things a little bit more complicated with the way they're now combining CRM and ERP with their overall cloud offering. And in this case, you know, if you're trying to do things in parallel, the customer may end up with two different implementation partners. So again, the messages we're going to try and put forward in this discussion is that it's even more key that you get good basics into place up front, because you potentially will have two different partners implementing in parallel. When you find, again, I'm going to say it again, and I've said it already on the first slide, I will be repeating similar messages all the way through to hopefully ensure that what I'm trying to say gets across. And again, it's up to you guys whether or not it's something you decide that you want to take on at the end of the day. Moving forward. So, the starting point for this is an article that Steve Sidey, who did the introduction just now, recently published on the 365 Talent Portal. And I think the key thing here is that one of the things is that, and you see this on the slide, despite around 50 years of mankind's collective experience implementing business IT projects, the failure rate is still too high. But again, we're just moving down to summarize some of the key takeaways from Steve's article. You know, there are some key things. It's look at the business processes and requirements before you do anything else. Trying to implement in parallel while re-engineering the business and implementing an ERP system, which affects nearly every part of the business, is really just a license to some degree for confusion, confuses the end users, it ends up with no real defined requirements. And my advice before anything else would be make sure you understand your business processes and have a clear and well-defined set of requirements. You know, check your ROI, have a return on investment, and keep on measuring that all the way through the project. You know, this is a key part of an overall success parameter, and you know, ultimately everybody involved, both the business partner and the senior delivery team internally, will be assessed on whether or not those objectives have been met. Company execs. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I've just got a bit behind on the slides. So here we go, just what I've said before. Just to add things there, loads of big companies made loads of money trying to do things at the same time in trying to implement both business processes and requirements. So again, just to go back to the ROI, it should more than just justify a budget. It should identify and define KPIs, and it should, you know, provide you a good baseline before you start. And it's key as you go through this to keep measuring and going back to whether or not the benefits are being delivered. You need really strong and senior sponsorship. And it's not just having a senior sponsor, it's about getting buy-in throughout the business, almost from the CEO downwards, to understand what the implications are. And it's not just an IT responsibility either. You know, traditionally this will fall into the IT director or the CIO, but it must go wider than that, because the implications of getting it wrong affect everybody and every division within the business. Support, it means getting people involved all the time throughout the project and not just attending reviews. One of the things I did early on when I was setting up my own business was we had a pretty good process that I introduced, was that every month I would get the project manager to do a summary. And that summary would consist of an overall view of whether the project was good, bad, or indifferent, and whether or not we were meeting the budgets and everything was running to target. And then what I would then do is pass that over to the senior exec, the sponsor, internally, for them to do the same piece of work. That report would then pass through my desk every month, and if they weren't aligned, that was a signal for us to meet with the customer to try and head off any particular issues. And those issues could be not on budget, or those issues could be that the delivery now required some additional function which hadn't been catered for and would have an effect on the project. And we'll talk about these strategic reviews a little bit later on. Again, be realistic, budgets, resourcing, time frame, it's key. Quite often there'll be a forced time frame involved where you have to do something. Target will be a year end, but then you need to take a step back and really think about whether it is achievable within that time frame to deliver what's required. And that means having a good solid plan in view as well. We've already said, make sure you understand the business processes and everything that needs to go in behind that. Another thing that gets frequently overlooked, and we will raise again and again as we go through this, is quality of data. Where you're typically replacing a legacy system, the data will be old, it will be inaccurate, and it's something that is a great opportunity to clear up and ensure that you get garbage in, garbage out, is the old phrase. You need to ensure you have good data coming in and good data going out. And then the last thing that I've always banged on about, and is frequently overlooked as well, make sure you've got good training material for your end users. Make sure things are documented. Now with the capabilities of the internet, it's easy to post things online. It's easy to create training documents and to share them across the organisation, and make it tailored. People have specific roles, and again, the ability to capture screens, add notes, and put behind that business process is something that's available today. Another thing we frequently heard within projects is when we're looking at internal resources. One of the things that you'll hear is that, well, we can spare so because they're not key to the business. That's actually the wrong question, or the wrong statement. The real statement is you should be bringing your best resources to the party, because these are the people who really understand the business and will be able to identify what changes are necessary, if additional changes are required, and they will really be able to input and test and ensure that what's being delivered meets the need of your business. And you know what? If you haven't got those people internally, then that's the opportunity, and I will do a little plug here, to use someone like us to ensure that you do have the right resources. Just because somebody is a good employee doesn't mean they'll make a good project manager, and you need a good, strong project manager. Again, real life situation, lovely guy was appointed to project manager for a huge project I worked on at Microsoft, and he was a lovely guy, knew everybody, knew the business really well, but he was a lovely guy, and he just said yes to everything. And ultimately we had a spiraling project delivery with additional function that should have been pushed back on, and it really didn't meet the requirements. But we'll talk again about the role of the project leader a little bit later on. Again, this is an area that we can actually help you define your requirements if you're looking at project structure, and potentially resource if you don't have the right people either within the company as a customer or within the partner as a delivery partner. We've talked about training and organisation impacts a little bit already. You know, this is just a no-brainer. Train your people properly. You know, put some time and effort and build some budget into creating those training materials. And the last thing that everybody Hi, can everybody, oh, sorry. Sorry, back to the customization bit. It looked like we just lost the signal there, but again, just be clear about what it is that needs to be delivered and stick to that as far as possible. If you do need to bring in additional functionality, then useful, then that's fine. But if you do have a need to upgrade and to carry on developing, then you've got to be really ruthless about how you do this. And again, you have to ensure that any customization will benefit the organisation. And again, no apologies. It's something we're going to look at again as we go through. Last point in this little section is get your data right. We've mentioned it already. I'll mention it again, but start data preparation work early. Get a look at it, understand what's wrong, what's legacy data, and what can be changed. And there are tools out there today that can help you do this. And maybe even as part of the project, or maybe as part of an overall program piece of work, get a small team in to sit down and look at how this could impact the quality of the business. Because good data, it means you're calling customers at the right time, you're not spamming them, you've got the right contacts in there. Everybody's data gets corrupted over time. So, a few other bits now. This is back to some, if you like, views that I have on things. An old, again, we have a lot of overseas guests on this. Some of the UK-based ones will be able to guess what the P with the asterisk stands for. But just to be clear, the 7 Ps, it's a really, really old phrase back to the 80s. Prior planning and preparation prevents poor projects, and it's absolutely true. And that is true for the partner, for the individuals, and for the company. And the next one is to fail to plan is to plan to fail. If you don't have a plan and you don't adhere to that plan and monitor it, you will fail. The last point that I'm really going to hit on here is that in my world and things I've done, I think a good project manager or good project managers are the second most important resource in the software business. So project managers are on the call now are going to disagree with me and think they're the most important. But having had my own business and run large businesses, the most important are your salesmen, because without them you don't have any projects. But the second one is good project manager will make or break a project. It really will. They'll be on top of everything, they'll document everything, they'll go to meetings. You don't have to produce minutes, produce action points, and monitor those action points from meeting to meeting. And the last point here is that something, again, I've seen over the years, and the slide's just building, is that customers frequently think that they've passed the ball to the delivery partner when the contract is signed. But, you know, it's the customer's project, and the customer has to live with what's being delivered. The customer also is the only person who really understands what their current systems do, how the business runs, and there is an absolute responsibility there to be an active part of the team and to have the ownership involved. And you know, the last set of items that came up, those 10 points, you know, these are things that it's the customer's responsibility to ensure. You know, we've said it already, focus on the business process. Don't rush the evaluation process. Make sure you're going to find the right partners to work with. And again, we'll discuss a few simple tools later on. Focus on the ROI, you know, get the right execs involved. And again, my own experience, if I didn't think we had the right level of people involved when we're engaging, I would raise that as a concern. Have a good and realistic project plan, you know, put your best people on it. Communicate internally, let the staff know and the company know what's going on, and communicate across the project teams. You know, the project team is not a silo, it's not a silo of the customer and the partner. And again, things we've already discussed. Adequate organisational change management, limit changes once the project started, and if necessary, bring in the right skills. Another one of my favourite slides that I found while going through, you know, just this whole process year over year, is lots of people will be sitting on the phone at the end of this call looking at the slides saying, yeah, we know all this. Well, we know you know it all. You know, if you sit down and have a conversation with somebody who's been through this, then you'll say, yeah, it's obvious. And we said at the beginning, this is common sense. But again, just a different slide, putting the message out in the same way. It has to be well managed. Be on top of it. Have someone who's on top of it. You need a good project plan. You know, make sure your team is the right people. And if they're wrong people, change them. Communicate, you know, schedule, check your schedules, check your costs monthly. You know, you should be on top of this. Scope creep, keep away from change. Don't ignore any warning signs. Something I learned years and years ago. Red flag. You know, a red flag is something that is absolutely key to early warnings. I'm not going to run through all of these because we've said them already. A couple of things we will talk about a bit later on is program office, project office, strategic changes. You know, you need a change control process. Yeah, and the partner should have a good change control process. So let's just, again, let's move forward. So, okay. No, yes, but, why, park it. Okay, all nice phrases. These are the most common words that your customer should hear from a project manager. Again, slide I used to use a lot when we were bidding for business and talking to the project teams, that even a small change can cause a big ripple. Again, you know, when we were talking about this, one of the things that comes up is personal experience. So I worked for a major car manufacturer at one point, and it was in my development days, and I was asked one evening to make a small change to a program because there was something that needed sorting. And I was quite happy to do it, but I was told we don't need to test it because it's only a small change and we'll just make the change, put it in and get on with it. So I'm not going to mention the name of the company, but basically the next day when we came into work, we were pulled in front of the senior management because the change I'd made had actually brought down what's called the vehicle off-road system. and it meant that no spares were shipped overnight to people who had vehicles basically sitting by the side of the road. So the message then was, luckily I didn't get into trouble for it because I did what I was told, which was put it in, don't worry about testing. But it really did have a, what's the word, a change to the processes internally as to why we did something. So, you know, you'll hear these words of no, yes, but, why, and park it. Always question why. If something comes up, just ask the question, why do we need to do this? You know, track back to the initial goals, and is it something that's going to affect what we're trying to deliver here? And, you know, as I said before, strong project manager will say no. But you can't keep saying no to a customer all the time, potentially. So again, the other phrase I learned when dealing with teenagers was yes, but. So I used to ask my daughter if she'd done her homework, and she used to say yes, but. And the answer was really no, but she was hoping I would hear the yes first. So you get the yes, but then you qualify it with but. Have you considered this? Have you thought about that? Have you looked at what the impact's going to be? And sometimes you're just going to say, sorry, this isn't strategic. We'll just park it. We'll come back to it later on. You know, and this just summarises the thought program, the process behind it. Is it part of strategic drivers? Is it business outcomes? You know, does it meet the project objectives? You know, does it affect any of the current activities? So again, things we've said, it's not part of the project, goes into the next bit, let's not do it again. So again, plagiarised is a good word. It means you've borrowed it from something you've seen somewhere, and I borrowed this slide when I worked for Microsoft. So Microsoft actually produced this slide as part of the elements that need to be involved in a project, a technical ERP delivery project. And again, I just thought it was a good slide because if you put it up in front of people, it just summarises the components. So again, things we've already said as we've gone through this, you know, none of this is different to the things we've said already. The last thing I'm going to add is that another key part that I think to any project is if you look on the right-hand side where it talks about integration and interfaces. A key part of implementing an ERP project especially is that there will, in certainly enterprise size organisations, there will be external systems that will need to link in, and that has a cost and an impact. And again, real life example, organisation we'd won the business at Microsoft, the partner was delivering, the contract had been signed around the base. They had 10 external systems that would interface into the new ERP system. Having done some initial work on the project, the partner came back and said there were actually 100 systems. And the customer said, well, okay, that's okay. You know, just implement 100 systems instead, integration points. And obviously that wasn't going to happen because the partner's saying, it's bigger cost, it's bigger resource, it affects the timescales. The customer said, well, you should have known this. And the partner's view was, well, we couldn't know it. It's your responsibility. You were the ones who told us there were 10 systems. So we had a bit of a fallout, but in the end, it ended well with the customer agreeing to pay more and the partner doing the work, but the project did have a slippage associated to it because you just couldn't do the amount of work in the time. But all of these points are relevant. So in summary then, on this, make sure there are good tools, good processes, good governance, good change control, good people, and again, one methodology. Not really discussed this today. You know, really important that everybody is working to the same delivery methodology, using the same tools, both within the customer and within the partner. You know, again, everybody has a tool set. If you talk to, I worked for HP, they had a tool set. Worked for Microsoft, they had their own tool set. When I had my own business, we had our own setup. but irrelevant. You know, they'll all probably do the job. Everybody should be working with the same set of tools, whether it's Microsoft Project, whether it's Excel, whether it's HP Edge as they used to call it, Microsoft SureStep, common, and the customer should adopt it as well. Right, a few simple things that so the IP is pretty easy on this, so it's ours. It's just stuff that I was involved a few years ago in looking at and helping someone look to acquire a business. And it was a software business. And one of the things that we decided we needed to do was develop a series of checklists, because one of the risks was that we were being told we were buying a good, stable organisation that delivered multiple projects over multiple years. The truth is we actually knew there had been some problems with various projects, and we knew some of the problems because we'd worked with them. So what we did is we just came up with a set of really simple spreadsheets that looked at whether it was good, bad or indifferent. And basically all it is a score. So company level, things we just looked at the company as an organisation. Did they have good tools? Were they used by everybody? Did they actually have a delivery methodology? Because our experience of one of their deliveries was project manager left, new project manager came on board, he didn't have a clue what this previous guy had done. Didn't use the standard tools. Is it well documented? Is it documented how they do a project? You know, did they have a governance model internally for checking, compliance, things being run properly? Change control, massive. You know, you have to have a change control process. To be honest, were the people good enough? And you know, going back to consistent tools, consistent processes, did everybody use it? That was our view of the company. You know, I'd say if I was a customer buying today, I'd be sitting there asking these same questions of any prospective partner coming through the door. Then we went into a slightly higher level view of the various projects we looked at. And again, none of these things are new. So we took some of their projects they were working on and we just went through the documentation. So everywhere there should be a project folder. And we just went through them. I'm not going to run through these in details, but you know, they're everything we've defined today and discussed. And you know, I'll just pick one. Were there sufficient resources? Had the customer put the right people in? Had we or had they as a partner? I say we because we were looking to acquire them. And this was literally going through each project that we decided to review. And so we were lucky because we knew some of the good ones and we knew some of the bad ones. And what we found was that basically the positives outweighed the negatives where the project would run well. You know, it's not rocket scientists. And again, this is another layer down, looking more at remember the Microsoft diagram I showed just now with the detailed level in there. This was more around that. But, you know, if you go down to the testing plan, it's actually detailed. It's program testing, integration testing, volume testing, and then what in the old term we used to call system testing, which is you're testing the things actually meet the requirements that are required. And again, it's dead easy. At the end of it, if the risk score, and you score 1 for each of these, if the risk score outweighs the positive score, you've got a problem. You know, no way you can hide it. You have a problem. So, risk profile. So we talked about looking at the company, we're looking at the projects and various other things. This is something else I quite liked and something that came out when we were looking at this company we were looking to acquire. We actually decided there were probably 4 different main types of risk involved. And you know, just looking at the highest level of strategic risk. So around this project or the program, you know, if a change is needed or there's something not done properly, is it a strategic risk to the business? So an example, we talked about the interfaces to the existing systems. One of those interfaces that they needed was around their whole product pricing portfolio. So without that being in place, it would have been a strategic risk, and it was one they hadn't picked up on. So it meant the project had to stop, and we'll go through some of the implications again. Program risk. You know, you've got multiple things going on at the same time. We talked about data earlier, as around the delivery and all the development. So if the data turns out to be so bad it's not usable, that then comes under the program. It won't necessarily affect the project, which the project may just be the development of the solution, but it does have an effect on the program of work overall. And then operational risk. If you found something that might endanger what we're doing today, then fine. But, you know, we've got definitions here, and I'll read them out because I've just waffled a little bit. So strategic risk is associated with the strategic direction of the business. Program risk, risk directly related to the successful delivery of the overall program. Operation risk, risk linked to business operations or transition from the project day-to-day operations. And project risk, risk directly related to the delivery of the project or projects within the program. Again, you know, just to summarise, not everything is going to be a showstopper, but it's important to identify and understand if things come up that are unexpected or as additional requirements. So, you know, we define it as a concern, and that concern might just be an issue that needs to be discussed or addressed. You know, again, it's important you must document these items. You know, both from as a delivery partner, it's important to have a clear audit, and as a customer, it's important to have a clear audit. Then it's identified there is a risk. You know, whatever we've identified is a risk. And again, we've already said a risk is a potential event which may adversely affect the successful achievement of the project's objectives. That then moves down into the, is it strategic, is it a program, or is it a project risk? The things that we've just talked about on the previous slide. The last one is a worry. You know, it's a minor concern or a problem that may not have been fully investigated, not quite formulated, so it goes into this parking area. Something that there should be a team looking at and assessing whether or not this is something that needs to be taken into account and maybe brought back into a reassessment of what's required. So, good project practice components checklist. You're all just going to sit there and say, we've seen this already, it's the same things we've already put in front of you, it's just in a different format and a different, slightly different design. And there is nothing new in this. You know, but as a simple checklist, sitting down in front of my customer, I'll be quite happy to put this slide up and say, we're going to go forward with you, we're going to do business with you, we need to tick all of these things and make sure that the project won't fail. Because if we can't get the tick in the box against all these items, then the likelihood is we will have a problem somewhere along the line. And as we said early on, nobody wants this to fail. It's in everybody's benefit, from the business through to the partners, to ensure that things are successful. Again, repeating myself yet again, you know, every change has an implication. So the ripple effect, you throw a small stone into the middle of a pond, it makes a little splash, but then it goes out. So you need to make sure that you have everything covered off. Again, just same message as we said earlier on, and make sure you've got good tools, good processes, good governance, good change control, and good people, and one methodology, and that's the project. You know, that covers everything from the customer through to the partner. And that's it from me, really. You know, we've got a couple of slides to finish off on. That if you want more.
Okay, so thanks very much, Louis. That was a lot of good stuff. So what I'd like to just cover is a bit more sort of Q&A, takeaways, and where you can get more information. So we will be publishing the links through on our blog page for the download, so you'll be able to get this, and we'll be setting up on demand as well through our YouTube channel. Additionally, there are some next seminars that we're planning. So there's Inspire WPC coming up in the summer, and we'll be covering an event which updates on that. We'll also be running some more CRM and ERP roll-ups, because there's an awful lot going on with Dynamics, and Business Edition is coming out over this way as well. So we'll be covering those through. The other information sources that you can get as it refreshes itself through. So if you look through our talent portal, you'll see on the main site there's a lot of Microsoft information and also partner related information, access to training for consultants, and the blog page is full of a lot of up to the minute news updates, stuff about DLP, stuff about functional technical updates. There's a whole load of different stuff if you look back over the blog history there, and it's all searchable. We've also got the YouTube channel, so there we've got snippets from a lot of the seminars that we've run over the last year. So there's a lot of update stuff and add-ons and Azure information around AX, CRM, NAV, also Dynamics 365. So have a look around those. There's a lot of other useful stuff there. And obviously you can subscribe onto our Twitter feed as well, because that gives you a lot of useful stuff. So with that, if there are no questions, I hope that's been a useful update session. Like Louis said, a lot of it's common sense, and it might appear simple at face value, but I've been running projects for about 20 years as well, and I agree that an awful lot of the common sense stuff doesn't get done. And I'm regularly astonished that people don't baseline their current situation so they can see how any new systems improve that. That's why a lot of case studies you see don't have any metrics in them. So I think go through those. We'll have those little checklists downloadable as well. But I hope that's been useful for you. And thanks very much for attending. Bye for now.